and Danny and let's see, is Danny the only one that we're missing?
So. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the meeting will come to order at 6:32. Welcome everybody to the Library Advisory Council. We're glad to have you here. What we're going to do is we're going to do just a quick introduction since we have a guest, and Adrian's going to introduce him in just a moment. But we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves and maybe just our name and just a line or two about why we're part of the library board. So, and what we'll do is we'll go just in order on the minutes, or at the top where it just reads off the members so we don't have confusion about who goes next. And I thought Adrian and I talked about it. From now on, I think what we'll do after this meeting, oh, Jane's there twice now. That's okay.
Yes. Jane, it looks like you froze on the other one.
I tried to leave it.
Okay. I guess we'll just keep going. If you can hang that one up, that would be great. Otherwise, or I might.
You're right smack in the middle of my screen, Jane.
Oh, I can do it.
There it goes. I think it disconnected. Good one.
She did the other one. Well,
the joys of technology, right?
We're off to a fun start.
Yes, Jade. I hope you can still hear us. Here she comes again.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and just start the roll. Here she comes. I'm Melanie Dobson, and I am the chair, and Randy's our vice chair, and he's not here tonight, but I am an avid library user. I've been in Sherwood for about 15 years, and I'm a writer, and I just love being at the library. So, and my kids all grew up going to Sherwood Library. They're in high school now, so it's been a huge blessing for us to have that resource. And then let's see, Fritz, you're next.
Okay, hi, I'm Fritz Kalashesky. I'm the rural representative. I am retired, an avid reader also, and I live out on a tree farm about 4 miles west of Sherwood, up on Laurel Ridge.
And Jane?
Yes, my name's Jane Van Kuren, and I live in Sherwood. I moved here in 2013. I teach English as a second language. I also have my own business called Ohala Language Services, and I have 2 other part-time jobs, including I work for the city of Sherwood in the Center for the Arts.
And then Danny, you're actually next. Welcome. And we're just giving a real brief introduction of ourselves. And we have a guest that Adrian's going to introduce in just a moment. But if you want to go ahead and just share your name and a brief intro as to why you're a part of our board.
All right, perfect. So I'm Danny Sticka, and I'm on the board because I've been a lover of libraries for my whole life, really. And so when I saw this opportunity, I jumped at the chance to be a part of our local library.
And then Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Fehrman. I'm the high school representative. I'm currently a junior at Sherwood High School, and I joined because I grew up at the Sherwood Library and I wanted to help.
Awesome. And then Renee.
Hi, Keith. Renee Rouse. I am the luckiest counselor because I have 2 of the best assignments, one of which is the library, and also an avid reader. And I love the fact that the library is truly the last real institution in the city that is open and inclusive for all.
And Adrian, you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly, I'm Adrian Doman-Calkins, the library manager for Sherwood Public Library, and I'm happy to welcome Keith Campbell, the city's new city manager, here to our board meeting. And it's such a pleasure to have you here tonight. And Keith, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the introductions. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, be brief, but been with the city now for about 5 weeks. And a lot of you said you're avid readers. I grew up, with being an avid reader, being someone that loved going to the library. All my family, we're big library goers and have passion about that. I'm one of those people that keeps track of all my books I've read since 2000. So I really enjoy that. And there's just something special. And people that know me, when they found out that the library was right below City Hall, my office would be said, wow, you've kind of found the perfect place. And then add the donut shop. And it's just kind of like the perfect place for me all around. So I'm excited to be here. I was part of the CCRLS board of directors too. So I have the background and library experience here as well. So hopefully can do some of that and bring some of that forward. But happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity to meet you all. And I will lurk in the background while you guys have your meeting, but looking forward to watching you all work tonight.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. So, and then Crystal, can you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Melanie. I'm Crystal Garcia, Adult Services Librarian 2, here with the City of Sherwood, and I've worked here for about 14 years.
Cool. I think, did we cover everybody? I think so.
I think so.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Yep. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
It's not really a change to the agenda so much as I just want to make sure that we clarify our next meeting, so we can kind of do that when I do library updates. I can include that about the December meeting, about not having one.
Okay. So no meeting in December, and it sounds like no Christmas party either.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we have enough business for a December meeting, but we can talk about it when we get to that part.
Okay, and then we'll move to go ahead and approve the minutes for October. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Anyone? I can't see anybody.
To approve?
What was that?
Can I make a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, please. Yeah, that'd be great. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and all in favor? Ayes?
Aye.
Ayes. And do we have anybody that doesn't approve that? All right, I move to approve the minutes then. And we'll move on then to the review of the first draft of the SWAT report to City Council, and that's Adrian.
Thank you. So the Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, Threats document has been coalesced. I took our Jamboard and put it in, well, and thank you also to Crystal for typing up minutes about our discussion, have that in the traditional Word document format. So actually, let me stop sharing this and get the correct thing here. One moment while I just move that over. Reshare. And so as a reminder, I think we didn't have full participation at our last meeting, and we have different people, not here tonight, but I think collectively between the two meetings, everybody's had a chance to contribute to our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In the past, as I said last time, there's been, there was kind of a trend that had been set and modeled for us to do a SWAT of the library, and then we were getting feedback over the last couple of years, like, no, really focus on the SWAT just for the board and not on the library. And now a SWAT of the library is still an important piece, and that could be part of our strategic planning as we go into that work, but it's separate from the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, threats of the board itself. So that's why this particular document has changed so much over the last few years. So I thought, you haven't seen this yet in typed up. Last time we saw it was cute little Post-it notes arranged on pages and so on. And I did link this onto the city website underneath where the agenda is. And so if you want to look at it there, you can as a PDF. This is a Word document I have, so I can just do some live editing. It's due the beginning of December. So I thought let's just work our way through it and make sure it reflects what you want it to reflect. Any questions before I just start reading it and going top down? Okay, thank you. So we've got strengths. And is this a good size, by the way? I could make it a little bit bigger. Should I do?
I think it's good.
I think that's about.
Good.
Let me see. I think I got it. There we go. Okay. So under strengths, I sorted things into categories a bit to try and make it just grouped. So engagement and leadership, strong sounding board for library staff, revolving leadership opportunities for the chair and vice chair, regular attendance even during a pandemic, thought diversity, age and gender diversity. Board members bring a variety of professional skills and valuable community input. Strong advocates for the success of the library, cheerleaders for staff. And that was the one we talked about the most, I think, and it had a lot of really wonderful components to it. And then strategic planning, continue to advise on evolving short-term strategic focusing areas to guide 2021 to 2022, which we'll talk about actually later at this meeting, while longer-term strategic plan updates have been delayed due to the pandemic. This is the part I'm the most grateful for, is that strategic planning piece. And then marketing, we didn't really call it marketing at the discussion last time, but as I was thinking about it, I thought it kind of fits with that. Board members have advised on messaging to the public. That was really about reopening and our services, make sure people know about them, and then also have helped promote library events and services within their local networks. Any comments or questions about strengths?
I don't know, on marketing, I'm thinking maybe a different word, more maybe like communication or something. Marketing sounds like we're selling something.
Yeah, communication. I like that.
I don't know. I mean,
that fit with other.
I like the word promoting.
Yeah, I do that too. I like that too.
Promotion.
Promotion.
How about communication and promotion?
Or advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those are good.
Communication. And promotion. I like the word advocacy a lot. But I'm also thinking, like, I wonder if it, usually when we talk about advocacy, we're talking about the levy or that sort of thing, but it's all the time. It is all the time. Maybe I should say advocacy, communication and advocacy. How about that?
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Ready to keep going? Got weaknesses. Capacity is limited. A vacancy has been difficult to fill. This is the vacancy that predates the pandemic. Meetings have been limited to virtual. Newest members have only ever met with the group virtually. Collaboration is more difficult. Staff time and administrative support for board initiatives is limited. And then lack diverse perspectives. Traditional user surveys and strategic planning processes do not provide diverse community input. Lack of diversity on the board for people of color and languages represented, in particular Spanish speakers, did not get Spanish survey participation. And then community needs assessment is incomplete. Didn't have user survey results when anticipated due to delays, have not dived into census data. Both could have helped with strategic focus areas. Any questions or comments on this section?
I'd like to comment about not getting Spanish survey data.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think it's against the law to go knocking on the door and ask a Spanish speaking person to answer the survey. I mean, I could do that, but I don't think that's the right way. It's supposed to come from the people as opposed to me finding some Spanish speaking people and helping them do the survey, even though you had it translated right away. So I don't know how to answer that.
I don't either. I don't know if it's illegal or not. We've never gone door to door for library surveys. I know, this is a different state, but I know in Washington state, they would do sometimes user surveys or non-user surveys and go to the bus depot that was in that town and interview people there. Yep. And, people could opt out and say, no, I don't want to.
Or you're sitting in the lobby and you ask, I know you have to ask every single person, do you want to participate in this survey? You can't just pick out certain people because you're going to sway the data. I used to work at the University of Michigan Survey Research Center, and there's a lot of control about collecting data for research.
So, Jane, I'm wondering if maybe under opportunities, because right now we're looking at weaknesses, maybe under opportunities, we put something about to do a better job, of getting user survey.
Yeah, and not violate law, because we have to be careful. It makes your data worthless. People say, oh, they were just trying to swing the vote.
I'm just going to put a placeholder here, something about something about user survey outreach to Spanish-speaking community.
When the city of Sherwood was recruiting information about planning, I know about it because it was before the pandemic, and they would go to Saturday market, or they'd go to some street fair or do something, and they would just, Robin Hood Festival, they were there. They would just say hi to everybody and motion them over and encourage them to fill out the form. I thought it was very fun, but I don't know.
Yes, those are things I think that we could fold into strategic planning too, with getting when we get to the part about the strategic focus areas and the update on that tonight, and there's a part in there about feedback loops, I think we call it, to get, like, maybe there's only 1 or 2 questions and we ask more often instead of every other year doing a user survey, and that we could do more for getting feedback.
I think that's true.
Oh. Okay. Thank you, Jane. Anything else on weaknesses or the topic of Spanish language and survey results? I guess, sorry, I'm scrolling before. I'm asking a question and then I'm scrolling. No?
Looks good.
Okay, opportunities. Bring new voices and stakeholders to the table. Invite new city manager. Yay, did that. Maybe we should take that line out. When I was looking at this again today, I'm like, should I take that out? I don't know. So, to a board meeting. Let's see. Invite Sherwood School District leadership to Library Advisory Board for partnership. Promote vacancies in Spanish and actively look for Spanish speakers to join the board. So these had all been separate ideas I grouped together. To be concise and kind of talk about input. And then meeting format. Consider hybrid meeting formats for future or alternating in-person and virtual meetings if public meeting law, I added this since our discussion, if public meeting law and city support allows. Internet access in rural Sherwood is expanding, which helped with virtual access to attend Library Advisory Board meetings. Could we have translators at board meetings? Now that came up. It kind of fits here, and it was in this other discussion about actively looking for Spanish speakers to join the board, but I thought it had more to do with the mechanics of the meeting, so maybe put it down here. And I think, did I mention last meeting that WCCLS is working on Title VI Civil Rights Act compliance around language? I don't think I mentioned that, did I?
No, you didn't tell us.
Okay,
So
WCCLS, as a department of Washington County, is working on, because the county receives federal funding, then even though WCCLS does not receive federal funding directly, and therefore we don't directly from them, but as a department of the county, WCCLS and the contractors, which includes all member libraries, need to comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which is about offering key pieces of information in the languages needed for that community. And so WCCLS is working on providing the funding to translate and have interpreters for member libraries. I don't know yet what that's going to look like, or how much, or which services. I don't know if it would apply to library advisory board meetings or if it would only be for library programs for the public, because this is really more a city function. It's blurry. So I don't know if that's going to be available to us to have translated, to say to have an interpreter and to market to people as we're recruiting for board members that we have interpreter services, but it might. So that's something that would be fiscal year 2022 and going forward. Yes, Melanie, I see you have a question.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is the right place for the discussion, but I was just curious, and this may have been discussed before, but what percentage of the books that we have and the resources at the library are Spanish? And then what percentage of the Sherwood community are Spanish speaking? Do we have that information?
I don't have that information at the top of my head. We have very small Spanish language collections. Crystal, can I put you on the spot? Do you happen to know how big Crystal purchases for the Spanish language adult and children's collections? But I know how many shelves they take up, or approximately, but I can't remember. And then, of course, certain percentages checked out. Do you happen to know, Crystal?
So I'm not certain on the percentages. I know with the population in Sherwood, the last time I checked, it was hovering around 7%, I believe.
Okay.
And I don't think our collection is quite there, but we're pretty close.
Great.
Crystal, do you think, because the 7%, is that people who identify as Hispanic, or is that specifically who speak Spanish?
I am not sure.
So I was thinking Hispanic was probably around 7% last I looked, but I don't know. I don't know if that's the same for language. The overall size of the library collection is now over 55,000 items. So yeah, it's not 7%. Keith, I think your hand was up next, and then Jane. You're muted. Yeah, it's a long day.
Yeah, you mentioned the hybrid meetings for the meeting format, and I do want to point out House Bill 2560, which I can share more information with you going forward. But basically, it is going to require that going forward, we will have to provide an opportunity for remote participation for viewers and people in the community. So it is something that we're going to have to work on. Mark, I think, I don't want to put him on the spot, I think has been working on some of this. I know IT has, in terms of how we move forward. So even if we do have hybrid, or even if we do go back in person, we'll still have to provide some form of hybrid participation going forward with that House bill. So just wanted to make that known and aware, since this is coming up in this conversation. Sorry, I was going to lurk, and here I'm jumping in, but I just,
no, that's great.
I just wanted everyone to know.
Is there an end date for that House bill, or is there, from now on, this is how it's going to look like?
It's going forward, and it goes into effect January 1st of 2022. So it's conversations we've been having right now in terms of boards and commissions, obviously with the city council, but the requirements that are laid out in that. And I can share that with Adrian. So she has that. And of course, we'll be having more conversations, but just wanted to go ahead and let you be aware of that, and just know going forward, even if we do in-person meetings, there'll still have to be that hybrid participation that would be allowed. So Mark, I think you might have unmuted. Did you want to add anything to that conversation, what you're aware IT is working on? Thanks, Mark. I'm sorry to put you on the spot too, and I will go back to lurking now. Thank you.
Thank you both. Lily, I see your hand is up. Or, sorry, Lily, one second. Jane, you had your hand up and then went down. Did you still have?
Sure. When we developed an answer about the Rotary Peace Poll and what languages to choose, I thought our library here had a very thoughtful response and looked at the entire WCCLS and got some data that way that helped us and the library choose the languages that are on the Peace Poll. And when I think about languages offered, I think about the entire card catalog, and it's pretty nice. And only recently, I had an Arab-speaking student that I was tutoring. And wow, did we have resources that were 110% appropriate. Now, they might not be on the Sherwood shelves, but they came very fast. Everything I needed in vast quantities. So it was very nice. So I think we're responsive. I don't know how else to say that.
Thank you, Jane. Lily.
Oh, so what I was thinking was if we're going to like having like the virtual access to meetings in the future and being able to interact virtually, even once, you know, COVID's done, pandemic's over, I was wondering, like, could that help with like translations, like especially if we could do like community translations or like afterwards do translations? Because I mean that's probably a lot easier than getting getting a translator there at the meeting. Could do closed captions in Spanish, and we could also have community contributions for the closed captions if we wanted to.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So this part you're talking about here where it says, could we have translators at board meetings? Let me put another, I don't know how to wordsmith it quite yet, so I'm just kind of making myself little notes so that after the meeting would be, can we have, so it's two suggestions, is that right? Can we have live virtual interpreters or translators at hybrid meetings?
Or just like after the fact, closed captions.
Or closed captions added in other languages. I mean, as a bare minimum, it seems like that would be more doable.
Well, it's what they do at the hospital. At the hospital, they have language line. And if you need another language, they call it. Or if you're in court and you don't know what's going on, they make sure you do. And there's an interpreter sitting with you side by side. And it's not free. I'll guarantee you that. It is not free. Language line sends the group a bill.
Oh, that's interesting.
But these are native Spanish speakers, or in the case of the court, they're court certified, which is a higher standard.
I was just, thank you, Jane. Yeah, and I don't know if WCCLS will provide a language line. There is something now for the county, but it's not rolled out to member libraries.
It's expensive.
We'll see. Yeah.
Adrian, it's 7 o'clock. I was just going to put that for the library.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this one, I'd like to just keep going because we don't have another meeting before this is due. But we could try and move through it a little bit more quickly. How's that sound?
That's great.
Okay. And thank you. Okay, so let's see, we had that, and then data to align decisions with most current census data. I made a note here about user survey outreach for next time. And then strategic planning, launch a robust strategic planning process to guide the next 3 years of services with an equity lens and addressing gaps in services. Okay. We kind of discussed as we went. Is there anything else to comment on opportunities? We've got that one. It's not all tidy on one screen anymore.
Just a quick question. The census, back to the Spanish-speaking population, will the census have that information once we are able to look at that data?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and last time, Jane kind of mentioned, last time we dug into language data for the peace polls, for what languages those would be in, we used data from the school district about what they knew of languages spoken at home, and then we looked at what languages our patrons were checking out, even if we didn't own them. So we had just quantities, and Spanish was the next, of course, most popular language, and then there were just a handful of others. So we kind of meshed those two data sets. And we could bring that data back again too. So I guess I should add here data to line, let's see, with a focus on languages and demographics. I mean, that's what census data is, but we'll see. Okay. All right. And then we've got threats, representation and engagement. And this is, I always feel like there's so much repetition in these documents because we're like, we had great engagement, but then it's also a threat because we're not, so we're not getting diverse feedback from groups such as Spanish speakers and people of color, vacancies on the board, and a lack of applications. Right now we have 2 vacancies. So one has been that long-term vacancy, and the other one is just because Fish moved a few months ago. Let's see, inability to meet in person reduces collaboration. And then census data missing. So again, we're having some repetition because it fits in different places, which means we could be making incorrect assumptions about community needs. Deeper work missing. Strategic focus areas need to transition to longer-term strategic planning. Lost momentum to restart the strategic planning rollout, which was stalled during the pandemic. Last plan expired in 2019. Priorities have changed, and we must retool with new methods for community engagement. I know my sentences are not like always complete. I'm kind of doing short bullet, trying to make it all fit in 2 pages, be easy to skim. So, okay. Any comments or questions? Suggestion, Jane? You're muted. Do you see Jane? Do you see it? Okay. Yep.
Yes. I remember we had a lot of momentum and excitement going before the pandemic when the Friends of the Library raised money to help pay for a preliminary discussion and hired an architect. And the city was pretty enthused. We were, receiving information, and it was very exciting. I think we've lost that momentum. And I maybe people are waiting for us to get going again with those ideas about remodeling and, changing everything, making it better.
That's a good point. I have that under goals, but I don't have it here under threats. So it's a similar kind of thing that we lost momentum. I'll make a new bullet point about that.
Yeah, because people responded, and I think there was true interest and big excitement.
And we have a very robust facility master plan, and it hasn't gone before council, and there were a variety of reasons we were told to hold off.
Hold off. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So we don't want it to become irrelevant, and the building's not getting any bigger all on its own. Yeah. All right.
Morphing.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions, suggestions about threats? Okay. All right. So that leads us to the 3 most significant accomplishments, and then we've got the goals, and that's done. So here, I can make this bigger again. All right, 2 or 3 most significant accomplishments for this past year. Reviewed, supported, and contributed to evolving strategic focusing areas in lieu of a delayed strategic plan. Provided guidance and review of the library user survey with positive results and participation. Stayed engaged in moving forward during a pandemic, continued to meet virtually, added 3 new members, attended professional development opportunities at Oregon Library Association's virtual conference, cheered staff on, and participated in reopening preview days. See, I fit so many things in C. they all kind of go together though, right? And then for goals for the upcoming year, and maybe I'll need to double check against everything we added up above if this needs to change. Review census data interpretation for the library service area. So maybe that should be review census data interpretation and language data for the library service area. Continue to update evolving strategic focus areas and transition to a longer strategic plan. Rejuvenate the library facility master plan, which was completed at the beginning of the pandemic. Consider a work session to present to council, similar to how Parks master plan has been adopted. So Renee, last month when you couldn't attend and Councillor Scott was here, he was talking about like, here's one way you could do that. I mean, I know you've talked about that too. We've all talked about that, but it was a good discussion. So how does that look? Accomplishments and goals? Does that match what you had in mind after the discussion or reflecting back and forward?
As a board or commission. Okay.
It all looks good to me with those revisions that you've added.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we should make more of an emphasis on the accomplishment for the past year as a board. The past year was pandemic. And the library, stayed open and served the community, regularly as much as it could. I mean, the library never backed down. It never closed up, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, those first few months, but that was the previous fiscal year. Those first few months, mid-March to July, we opened curbside partway into July.
Yeah.
But again, that was, so maybe.
I think we ought to toot our horn on that.
Significant.
Yeah, because it was serving the community during a horrible time when the library by nature is an in-person organization and service we still continued to serve the community.
So I wonder maybe in this A, because it needs to be, what was the board's role in that? So maybe in A, strategic focus in areas. Maybe I could say more about reopening library. Let's see.
You had us come and do a practice thing.
Yeah, you did the
preview days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have that done. Mobilize library services to remain open and available during a pandemic. How about that?
Yeah, I just think we ought to, because I thought that was a big deal what the library did. I mean, considering everything was closed up pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Can we safely say that our board supported all the safe practices you did so that we didn't have an outbreak? We don't want to violate confidentiality. I don't know about that. I think we weren't the source of an outbreak at our library, and our board supported you when you were standing behind your people so that they didn't get sick.
How about if I add this? It becomes a very long sentence, but is this still a good sentence, Melanie? Should I split it into two?
I like that.
I'm putting you on the spot too now.
I can revise it if you want, Adrian, later.
I can send this out to everybody again, and I should say I meant to give Stephen Remsen, who's not present, credit too. He gave so much really great feedback at the last meeting, and he couldn't make it here. But a lot of the great additions that happened last meeting were his ideas. Not all of them. I mean, several of you had great ideas too. But since he's not here, I wanted to give him credit too. Okay, I like that. Thank you. Good. Fritz, thank you. Okay, are we done?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
You on the library page? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I will stop sharing that. So I will send this to everybody. Right now, this live Word document does not match the PDF that's on the Sherwood, Oregon website. So I'll edit, or excuse me, I'll re-upload it to the website probably tomorrow. And give Randy and Stephen a chance to look at it too, and anybody else here who wants to look at it again before I send it in. So I think it's due December 1st. Okay, thank you. So let's see. So library updates, how are we doing on time? We're like 13 minutes over. That's all right. I think I can go quickly. The current and upcoming events, and we have the winter reading programs that are about ready to start. We have an adult winter reading program that is going into its 4th year. It starts at the beginning of December, and that's where we invite people to read kind of outside of their comfort zone and read 3 books, and there's a few different categories to read in. Small but fabulous prizes. It's mostly a really fun, engaging way to promote some of the more diverse parts of the collection and get people reading in different genres and so on. And then there's a Books and Bricks program, bricks as in Lego bricks, reading program that will start mid-December for the kiddos, and they get a chance to win a Lego book and get an extra checkout at the school. So those are the biggest things going on for the reading programs. We're still doing our virtual programs. We're tentatively planning some upcoming events that could be in person. I'll talk about that actually with strategic focusing updates. Let me go ahead and switch over to that. So I did some big updates to that page. I'll share my screen. So we had a discussion last month about updating this. So we're now on our 3rd official version of the strategic focusing areas. I updated this page that lives on the city website. Are you seeing all this again, by the way? Yeah, okay. And so our current strategic focus areas are restore in-person services instead of reopening, since we've been reopened, technology, equity, and strategic planning, community engagement. So those last 3 stayed the same. And then I captured kind of down here sort of a history of why we're doing this and what it means. I'll open up the current document. The current one is linked here. The previous ones are here, plus a snapshot of our accomplishments with the last full 3-year strategic plan and the text of that plan. So it's all there. So the pretty version of this is updated. I won't go through all of it because I didn't change all of it, but this first column has been edited significantly and kind of expanded out and added some information. We still have prioritized restoring in-person services for most underserved community members while balancing safety for staff and patrons. We're looking at restoring in-person computer classes for basic skills first, potentially, let's say the right thing. I think we're kind of tentatively looking at February, that we, depending on how cases are going, so on, that that we could do in the morning before we open at the computers. Those are usually really small classes anyway. They're people who are we are getting requests, and those are patrons who are showing us that they're not comfortable watching a video to teach themselves how to do these things. They don't want to do it on their own. They want somebody there to teach them. And then we have a new adult-focused program series, how-to practical skills series that we're going to launch, and then we'll have things like car maintenance would be one of them. And there's one on jobs and interviews. That I think we're thinking nutrition one, that kind of thing. And then restoring story times. Jane, it says you're coming in again. Looks like Jane froze. I'm letting Jane in again. Oh, I see, Melanie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I love that practical skills series idea. Can that be for late teens too, or is it strictly for adults?
But yeah, it could, it's sometimes libraries have called it adulting or adulting 101, kind of designed for late teens. But then there were so many adults that are like, well, I never learned that. I'd like to learn that. Like, I want to go to the car maintenance one myself.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
So yeah, it's really meant for both. Yeah.
Okay.
And then story times. So there's, the future is vague. We don't know when this is going to happen, but we do know, I mean, our youngest patrons have really suffered from having in-person programming. They're not school age yet. They're also not old enough to get vaccinated. On the other hand, staff are now, for the most part, eligible for booster shots. And so, there's risk assessment with everything. We're not ready to immediately start story times, but at some point, we will have to start we'll be putting ourselves out there into the world more. And then we want to continue to poll virtual participants about preferences for in-person versus virtual for the book clubs and other programs. We've been hearing a mix. Some people really miss in-person, and some people really love virtual and aren't ready to go back. So I expect we'll have both types of programs for a while. I moved full tech help appointments to this column, even though it's related to technology, but it's really, the appointments are kind of more like a service or a program. Melanie, is your hand up again?
Yeah, sorry. One more question.
Yeah.
I was just curious how the House bill will affect programming. Is that the House bill just for city and government meetings, or does that affect library programming as well with the hybrid options?
I believe that's public meeting law.
Okay.
So that would be different. Although the Title VI compliance, that's not virtual, that's about languages. That could start to affect our services, not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year. Okay, and then technology, I didn't really update this very much. I did say, the current setup for computers, we're using every other one for social distancing. So at some point we'll bring all those back. And I added continue to promote new hotspots and Chromebooks for checkout. Otherwise that's the same, other than I deleted the ones we'd already done. Equity, I did a little bit of cleanup to make this easier to read, and I reordered things in my best guess for the order we might do them in and what makes the most sense. Like policies is just an ever-going, it's a cycle. We'll eventually get even better with equity work and have a full formal equity lens and relook at different policies with that new equity lens, but we need to keep doing it with the knowledge we have as well. So the behavior policy and the collection development policies, we've talked some about those recently. And then I wanted to point out, I've already talked about it, but I put in this piece about Title VI down at the bottom, since it's not until next fiscal year. The rest of, we're already on there. And then I think I just updated this a little bit. I took off the user survey since we did it. I added other community data, not just the census. And I added this one because I'm just generally hearing like we need to, like you say, we need to toot our own horn more, and with relative to budget and levy conversations and so on. So communicating the return on investment and outcomes of library services, I think, is part of this. This whole category here is really about like gathering and digesting and getting. But I think we also need to then say, and here's what we do, and here's why that's relevant and important. Any questions about that?
I have a question
Yes.
for Mr. Campbell. Is he still on? Is he still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, hi. Thank you. I have a question. I'm the rural representative, and one of the conversations we've had over the past year was the internet access for people outside of Sherwood. My question is Sherwood broadband expanding out into the rural area, or is it all being left up to Ziply, which is the new frontier?
No, I mean, Sherwood Broadband has been looking in and has been going into different rural areas, and the focus is, I mean, I know there's been some focus right now on building what they're calling the backbone internally and to build out the system throughout the city. But being in the rural areas is something that has been an ongoing project and something they're still working on. So it has hit rural areas. They are looking for target clusters and places they can go. And I know that with the new infrastructure bill, still looking about trying to expand into some of those rural and the broadband into some of those rural communities and rural areas as well. So I would say the answer is they're out there and still looking for opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are we ready for me to keep moving on to the next topic?
Yeah, are we doing the strategic focusing updates?
So that's what this was.
Okay.
If
So
I
hiring...
toggle over, so hiring updates, I'll just quickly say we have a new person starting for our library page position, Eleanor, and she's coming to us from Multnomah County. And then we're really close to making an announcement on our library assistant 2 position, which we did interviews for recently. And I think I mentioned both of these recruitments. We've had, like, I don't know, double, triple the number of people we normally would have for applications. More than that, even quadruple. It's a lot. So, and we're getting really high quality candidates with a lot of relevant experience, a lot of people who are very engaged and wanting to work here. So that part feels really good too. It's too bad we don't have more jobs to give them. Sometimes it's hard just having one. And then WC Celis updates, I'll just fold that into the next, later I go over the intergovernmental agreement updates, so I'll hold those updates then. And then I wanted to mention, so December, normally pre-pandemic, the city would do a boards and commissions appreciation dinner. We would reschedule our meeting instead of being the third Wednesday to be right before that, and we'd have like a 25-minute meeting or something, and we'd all go over and have delicious food. And we usually only looked at just some statistics, and we looked at our SWAT one more time and prepped for the discussion that was going to happen at that boards and commissions dinner. So there isn't major business that typically happens in December, but I did want to make sure everybody's okay skipping the December meeting, our December meeting, since we're not having a boards and commissions appreciation dinner again this year.
I understand that we're not getting together, and I'm not questioning it, but Melanie, as our chairperson, is a very good speaker. I think she could record a wonderful statement that would, how Randy has done it. I've heard it, and it's really good. Randy's talk, and he stands up in front of all the others. And Melanie, you can too.
Record for, I've never been to one of the Christmas events.
Well,
oh, you haven't. It will come again.
It's fun. It's actually fun. And the different commissions sit in a clump, and hang out and have dinner. And then they give reports, and it's like they're talking to each other. It's really very interesting. And I can see you doing it, Melanie.
Well, thank you, Jane. I'm glad to do whatever you need me to do, Adrian.
Thank you. Well, this year it's just we just submit our document. It goes in a packet. The council gets to read it. Yeah, but I agree. I think you would be good at that, Melanie. Let's see. So the management report. I'll just pop up some numbers on the screen. Did you see the screen change? Do you see bars of green going across? Okay. And so I have, normally, pre-pandemic, I used to make you a pretty report. This is just a print screen of my spreadsheet with hiding some columns, but I wanted to get you the numbers. We've talked about this recently. So that this piece right here, these are the total checkouts for our library. They include digital, so physical materials, renewal physical materials, and digital. And then I always compare to the previous year, but I've started comparing to pre-pandemic. So the full year, if we go as far back as fiscal year 18-19, that year had 0 pandemic related months in it. And so we're now, the last 2 months we've been in the green. We've been positive that we've had increased total circulation compared to pre-pandemic. And so in September, I was kind of like, is it going to hold? In October, it's 6%. And then when you look at just physical checkouts, those are still, they're doing so much better than a year ago. But if you compare to pre-pandemic, it's still down a little bit. Minus 8% last month, or excuse me, September, minus 5% in October, but it's definitely getting better. So I think that's really positive. The digital checkouts and Overdrive are what are making the biggest difference because it's a bigger slice of the pie than it was pre-pandemic. Nowadays, it's about 22% of total checkouts. It's gone down a tiny bit since the heyday of, digital checkouts were getting into the 9,000s, but it's still, 7,500, whereas we used to be in the 5,000 range. And then I'm going to scroll. You might want to close your eyes so you don't get dizzy. I'm scrolling. Okay, now I'm at collection development. Our total collection size is now over 55,000 items. And I don't have volunteers in here because we're doing such minimal work with our volunteers. I don't have very accurate data on that right now. Computer use is still definitely low compared to pre-pandemic. We have half of our computers available. We're open our full 60 hours a week, but there just isn't the demand. Our door count is still low also, so that makes sense. So I don't have compared to pre-pandemic in here, do I? Or no, I think this was actually supposed to be pre-pandemic. I think I have this labeled incorrectly. So we're still 60% below what would be our normal for uses. Door count, we saw almost 10,000 people come through our doors in October. That's still 55% below pre-pandemic. It's around 300, let's see, where do I have this? 317 people per day. It used to be around 700 people per day. Yes, Jane.
Yes. Do you have, maybe I missed it, did you discuss the impact of getting rid of fines through the whole district? You were anticipating
just now I didn't.
change.
No, but I think if I scroll back up, I think part of that success is showing up here. It's hard to know how much of it is because of fines. And then I think
That
also
was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a really big deal.
Eliminating fines.
We have, I'm scrolling down again. Where did it go? Total registered patrons, we have 14,000 patrons registered right now. We had 150 people sign up for a library card last month, and normally pre-pandemic that was around 100, 110. That's the highest I've ever seen it here for 1 month. So something's happening that's good. And I'll leave it at that for stats. I did put this on the website as well under the meeting information. Oh yes, Fritz, I see your hand.
Yeah. Okay. The question I think is related to what Jane said. So do you detect that people are, I know there's no fines anymore, but are people bringing their books back on time? Are they holding them out longer? Can you tell?
We do have stats on that. I don't have those stats in this report, and I don't have them in my head. I know
Okay.
that there's work. There is work to do. So we have, people get billed for things still. So if an item doesn't get returned, we have automatic renewals now. And if it has a hold on it or it maxes out on automatic renewals, then it will eventually age to lost, and then they get a bill.
Okay, got
And
it.
so if they don't pay their bill, their account, of course, is blocked. They can't check it, or it's blocked if it's over a certain dollar amount. And it used to be we had a collection agency. So if they still didn't pay their bill, they got their bill in the mail, they still didn't pay it, the collection agency then would start to contact them. And when WCCLS Executive Board approved us going fine free, which then, what do you call it? They supported it. It had to go to the County Board of Commissioners. They approved it. But from Executive Board, it came with the caveat that we needed to figure out an internal mechanism for those follow-up calls and emails and letters about lost items, and do that internally. And I'm actually on a WCCLS group where we're trying to still figure that out. So there'll be more. It's not an insignificant number, but it's not a huge number either. Most people do return their materials.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about statistics? Fritz, is your hand up again, or is that from last time?
Well, one other, just when you're mentioning that so many more people got library cards, which I think is terrific, do you think that's just a reflection of a growing population?
I wonder how much of it is kids coming in. I don't know. I haven't dug in to see if I can figure out any trends with that. I think I'll see what happens next month too, but I know we're seeing more families coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing people who waited, who normally would have gotten a library card by now, and they've waited and they haven't been coming in.
I just think it's exciting if we're getting new residents, is one of the first things they do is get a library card. I just think that's really exciting for all of us, for new.
It could be. Yeah. A lot of people move in the summer, and then if it takes them a little while to get settled in, not everybody comes to the library the next week. Some people do. Yeah. Good. Okay, well, good. Thank you. I will stop sharing that. And then I'll do kind of the short version. So the WCCLS cooperative agreement process, pardon me, which you've heard me speak about, is or CAP. That's the joining of the executive board for WCCLS and policy group, which I'm on. Our rep right now for executive board is Kristen Schweitzer, my boss, and actually Kristen wasn't there today, and Keith couldn't come, so I was wearing two hats. I was there for myself and representing Sherwood. The part of the meeting the part of the work that we're at right now is digging into the language of the intergovernmental agreements between WCCLS and the member libraries. And in particular, there's a section about funding, and there's also sections about what services WCCLS will provide, and what services or what promises WCCLS member libraries will uphold, that kind of thing. So it's wordsmithing. We went through the funding section and different payment sections and so on. The County Board of Commissioners is involved in a different way this time than they were 5 years ago. There are different people who on the commission now, and different people in county administration who they want to have more regular updates rather than just wait to the end and say, okay, we approve it. And so they get to see this draft, even though it's not finalized yet. They get to kind of hear, how are the discussions going? Do they have input at this stage? And then meanwhile, the member libraries each have their governing bodies. So for the cities, we have our city councils that over the next few months, we have opportunities to give our city councils updates and say, here's how it's shaping up for the language of it. The money, the actual dollar amounts has already been solidified for the most part. It's not technically approved yet, but it's a 3% increase compared to what everybody got last year. And that goes through, or excuse me, a 3% increase, for what we're in this fiscal year, we'd get next year, and then 3% on top of that for the next, completing the 5-year cycle. And that's what we budgeted, it's what we expected. There were discussions about equity, and you may, did I send you the article about Cornelius? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting myself. I think I didn't send it to you. I sent it to staff, and I was going to send it to you. I'm going to forward you an article in case it comes on your radar. So Pamplin Press published an article. Cornelius Public Library, which is a member library, has they've made some strong points that they think the funding distribution should be changed now and not wait for the next levy. Everybody on this CAP meeting supported keeping the funding structure as it is with those 3% increases, allowing everybody to continue to provide the level of services that we are doing with the amount of money that we have. There's no new money coming in with this levy. It was a renewal, not an increase. And recognizing that 3% doesn't keep up with inflation, but at least it keeps it even, that all the member libraries are getting the same increase. And then a lot of deep equity work needs to be done to look at the funding distribution formulas and what the goals are for meeting equity gaps in the county and so on. And so that process will start soon. And next levy cycle, then there would be a new funding model. I feel like I just said a whole lot. Does that make sense? I mean, I guess the takeaway is I want you to know that the drafts are going forward. They're it's like two arms. The Board of Commissioners is involved looking at drafts, and then our councils get to look at drafts as well. Yes, Councilor Brous.
So if there's a potential for a new funding model for the next levy cycle, are they anticipating increasing the amount of the levy or the request?
Yes. That's, it hasn't gone through the process to be formally approved on what that dollar amount would be or what the increase would be, but everybody at the table is like, yes, we're all in agreement. It needs to be more money. So it's going to feel lean for the rest of the levy cycle. Mm-hmm. And the levy, as a reminder, we talk about things in levy cycles because that's how the funding distribution model is forecast. The levy actually pays for about 20% of the funds. It's shifting 20 to 30% of the funds that we get through WCCLS. The majority of the funds that we get through WCCLS, all the member libraries get, are actually general fund dollars from Washington County. And that doesn't have a 5-year cycle to it the same way, but everything is just done in a levy cycle administratively. Yes, Melanie.
You may have just answered this, but the levy cycle is 5 years. Is that what you said?
It has. Yeah.
So when does ours end? Because we just passed our levy, correct?
So let me make sure I say the right thing here. Okay. Hold on. I gotta think. So what happens is the county works really far in advance, right? So the voters voted on a levy a year and a half before the money actually started to come in. So it seems like, oh yeah, we did that. We must be partway through already, but we're actually just at the very beginning. So this current fiscal year that started in July is year 1 of a levy. And then next year will be year 2, year 3, 4, 5. So by the time we get to June 30th, 2026 would be the end of that levy cycle.
Thank you.
And so prepping for the next levy will probably start in 2023. I mean, it's always starting. We're always thinking like, what does the next levy need to be? But there needs to be a lot of look at this equity and the funding distribution and what are our goals and outcomes that we need and how much will it cost to do that, and therefore how much does the levy need to be. And then there'll be voter polling and so on, so that by the time it goes to the voters, which I would think would be in 2024, everything's just solid, for being thought out. Did that answer your question, Melanie, or do you have another question?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take down my hand. Thanks.
Yeah. Don't quote me on the 2024 part, but that's my best guess based on having seen this happen. Yeah. Okay, so that's really what I wanted you to know. I can go into more detail at future meetings about our funding and where it comes from and the history of that. I thought maybe I'd have a little bit more time to talk about it, but the broad strokes. And Councillor Browse, I mean, maybe at some point you and I could talk about it so that you feel really comfortable talking about it too if you get questions.
I'd appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a while since we've talked about all of that. Okay, good. Well, that concludes everything I had to say.
Oh, you're early. That's impressive, Adrian. Wow. All right. It is. Yeah. Councillor Browse, do you have a council update for us?
I have a couple things I can share. I'm not sure how many of you know or not, but Chief Growth is retiring at the end of this year. So we are undergoing a search for a new chief of police. And interimly, Ty Hanlon, who has been one of the captains, will be the acting chief. So we're in good hands, but we will miss Chief Growth. Something that is being worked on the senior advisory committee level, of which is my other assignment, is trying to get Sherwood dedicated or designated as a senior friendly community. So that's pretty exciting. We have a work session with council coming up I think it's in December, it might be January. As far as other things that are happening, design standards are being done as the new House bill comes into effect. The comprehensive plan will be voted on the next meeting. So that's finally coming to fruition, which is exciting. And the only other thing I have to update is if you are familiar with the Chamber of Commerce, it is time for the annual awards. So there are different recognitions that are available to nominate people in our community, businesses, and leaders. So I would encourage you to go to the Chamber website. It should be up probably tomorrow, but you can start nominating people for the Business Leader of the Year or Community Service Leader of the Year, and there's many others. So I would encourage you to participate in that too, so that we can celebrate Sherwood and the Sherwood businesses and the Sherwood community. And that is all I have for tonight, unless you have questions for me.
Do you have the URL for that, for the website?
I will. Well, the website is sherwoodchamber.org, and the that document that I'm referencing will be up probably tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. All right. Adrian, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
And then did anybody else have any other business to discuss? I think we were going to talk about the dates for next year. Is that correct?
So I will send those out soon. So we'll skip December. So then January will be our next meeting. We'll go back to our stick with our third Wednesday of the month, 6:30 to 8 p.m. So that's just always the time. So the next one will be January 19th. I don't know what to say about assuming whether it will be online or in person. I don't know, but it sounds like there would be a way to do either. And then going forward, so we'll just keep doing that. And then the only time we get off that sequence is in the summer. We just do the middle month of the summer is how I think of it. So we don't do June. We meet in July. We don't do August unless there was something so pressing, we hold that kind of option available. But so it's 10 meetings a year generally.
Great.
That's it.
Right. Does anybody have anything else?
Well,
All right.
I'll say thank you so much to City Manager Keith Campbell for coming tonight. I'm glad you got to meet most of our group. I'm really proud of this Library Advisory Board. They're really great. And we have a couple other great members that you didn't get to meet. We'll try and make that happen somehow. Thank you for making time for us.
Yes, we'd love to have you back anytime you'd like to join us. Thank you for coming.
It's important that we stand behind this library strong. Very important.
All right, well, we'll adjourn the meeting then at 7:47. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.